Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. Welcome to our show, PCP Movie Night, where we gather every Monday night to talk about the movie of the week. And we are at the tail end of March Madness. And tonight, for our penultimate March Madness show, we're going to be talking about Mother, directed and written by Darren Aronofsky, who we know from such works as Pi, which was going to be on the March Madness lineup. But this movie was sent to me by Two Gun Pedro, who I see out there in the chat. So thank you so much, Two Gun Pedro, for sending me this movie. If you want to sponsor PCP Movie Night, it's easy. Go to the link in the description, pick a movie on that list, buy it, and ship it to me. That's how it works. But we added Mother to the list. Darren Aronofsky, who did Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Wrestler, Black Swan, The Fountain. I would say that I am a fan of Aronofsky's work. And the one regret I have about his career to this point is that we never got his Batman Year One movie, because that would have been a trip. But anyway, we got a great panel joining us tonight to talk about the madness of Mother, including Brooks. What is up, my man?
What's up? This movie, it's a lot.
yeah.
It's
That's one way to say it. It is a lot. First time watch for you as well, right? This is my first time watching.
I've never heard of this one. I've heard of some of his other movies. Like, I haven't seen them, but I've heard of like Black Swan and The Wrestler. But
you should definitely check out Black Swan. I think you'd really like that one. Mm-hmm. That's a really good movie. Yeah, I'm not as big of a fan of Requiem for a Dream as other people. And now that I think about it, I think this is the first Aronofsky film that we've talked about here on PCP. We did Black Swan on Blood Splatter Chatter, I think last year for March Madness. We should do some more of his films so that you watch them. Maybe Pi definitely needs to make the list for next year.
He's got an interesting style, I have to say.
Oh, you ain't seen nothing. Well, actually, you have, because you've seen Mother.
Yeah, I can't imagine him going like much more out there than this movie.
Well, all right. We got to cover some more of his films. Also joining us tonight is the missing link himself. It's my buddy Steph. What is up, buddy?
What's going on, fellas? Happy to be here. I don't know about covering this. I was telling you guys in the back chat, I've seen this once before, and I felt like I'm more vetted now. So I thought like going into this, rewatch, I would understand it a bit more, and I didn't. So it was still an experience, just like the first time. And I gotta say, just to piggyback off the Batman Year One, I also wish we could have seen the Wolverine movie by him as well. That would have been dope.
That would have been better than the Wolverine movie they did. I guarantee it might have been a little weird and esoteric for some people, but it is pretty freaking cool. And to round out the panel tonight, we also got another first-time watch. And Link, I love that you've seen this before. This is your second time. So you're the veteran on the panel tonight. But another first-timer is Mr. Joe Corallo. Welcome.
It's true. Hello. I think we talked briefly about Darren Aronofsky last time at the end of the chat. I forget if it was at the end of the chat or after we were off. I never remember. But because like I like Requiem, I like The Wrestler, I like Black Swan, and then I also watch this.
All right.
So
I think one of the only films of his I haven't seen is The Fountain. I haven't seen that one either. I would like to see that one, but yeah. All right, well, let's get into it. As I said, Two Gun Pedro sent me this movie and said, this is my pick for March Madness, right? And I was like, all right, let's check it out. And I watched it yesterday in the afternoon during the day, and I'm glad I did. I watched this movie right after I had talked to Joe. Joe, you had texted me and you're like, have you watched it yet? I was like, no, what'd you think? You're like, I don't know. I got to think about this. And so after I finished watching it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm going to have to think about this. And I let it dwell overnight and all day today. It's not escaped my head at all. I honestly, at this point, having really like dived in and tried to figure out some of the references and some of the inspirations and hearing Aronofsky himself talk about it, I think I really like this movie, y'all. I think I do. I'm like, and it's close with Black Swan right now, and it's obviously I'm in the glow of watching this movie and thinking about it, right, and diving into it. But like this and Black Swan, I think are like his two best films that I've seen. I do love Pi. It's been years since I've seen Pi, and we definitely got to redo that one because that's a perfect March Madness movie. But I find this movie rather profound. This movie works on so many layers in a very simple manner. It's the story of a marriage that is failing, right? But there's so much more beyond that, right? It's not just about how a husband treats his wife. It's about so many things. If you've not seen the movie, y'all, just so you know, this is how we do it on PCP Movie Night. We can't have an in-depth discussion without spoiling the movie. So if you've never seen it, don't want it spoiled, go watch the movie and come back. But like, come back while we're live. Like, watch the movie real quick, like on like quadruple speed, and come back before we wrap up. That's a joke. But anyway, I really do like this movie. I think it's rather profound. It's more than just the story of like a marriage in trouble, right? It's more than just about the way that a lot of husbands treat their wives. It's also about how we are treating Earth. It's also a scathing criticism on religion, in particular Christianity, right? Because this is, and I felt really dumb because I get to the end of the movie and I almost wanted to text you, Joe, and be like, so what? Is he God? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Started going, oh, that makes sense. Like, you know, the baby and that baby scene fucked me up, dude. Like, it's like that scene in Train Spotting. I love that movie, but every time that scene's coming up, I'm like, oh, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see that scene. Fucked me up, man. But and then like I felt so stupid when I started realizing and diving deeper that it's a big part of it is kind of telling the story of religion or the Bible and how humanity kind of responds to that. And then I felt really dumb when I realized, oh shit, so those brothers were Cain and Abel. That makes sense now. Like, I didn't even pick that up. I didn't even notice that when I was first watching the film. Basically, Ed Harris is Adam, Michelle Pfeiffer is Eve. Their two sons are Cain and Abel. When the sink busts open, that's the flood. The baby who gets killed by the ravenous masses is Jesus, right? And they're even eating him like it's the Eucharist, you know, like the communion. I didn't really notice any of that shit. I was just like, this is some fucked up shit, dude. And I'm trying to piece together, man. Like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, I know there's a cyclical nature to this from the beginning of the movie, right? Like, there's going to end where it started. Like, I could tell that. But man, it's crazy. So there's a book. My immensely amazing lady friend was sharing this book with me today. And then I heard it from Aronofsky's mouth in an interview say that was a direct inspiration of this movie. It's called The Giving Tree. And I've never read it. Apparently it's a book that's really kind of difficult to find. I think it's like been banned or something. But the story is about a boy and a tree, and the tree gives the boy everything that it can: shade, food, a place to sit. And the boy, over the course of his life, just abuses and takes from this tree until it's just a stump, but the tree never stops giving. And the movie's called Mother because Jennifer Lawrence is Mother Earth. Javier Bardem is God, and then humanity is humanity, right? And I think it's rather brilliant because another thing I love about this movie, this is not a movie that I can easily explain to someone. This is a movie that you have to allow. I mean, I could easily explain it without spoiling it, Joe. Don't give me that fucking look.
It's a pretty easy movie.
But anyway, I wouldn't want to spoil anything. So I was asked by Rex at Dynamite today, what's it about? And I was like, it's about a failed marriage or something. Like but there's more than that. I don't want to really explain, but it's a movie that it unfolds. You know what I'm saying? I never knew where this movie was going. This is not an MCU film.
You never read the Bible?
Well, I didn't realize it was the Bible at first, brother. So, I don't know. I really liked it, man. And the more I think about it, the more I'm really digging it. I would like to see it again and see, knowing more about what the thematic material is, how it resonates on a second watch. But all in all, I think it's got great performances. I think it's got brilliant cinematography. It uses a lot of CG, but you don't really notice it. The special effects are pretty good. I like it. It's got elements of Hellraiser too, with the heart within the house and shit like that. But I don't know. I like it, and I think this is truly a horrific movie. Especially when you piece together that maybe it's talking about the way we treat our planet. Darren Aronofsky, of course, is a environmentalist. He's an atheist. That informs some of this movie. But yeah, I think I really like it. Brooks, what about you? First time watch. What did you think about Mother?
Yeah, well, like I really like this movie, but this movie has like no mainstream appeal whatsoever. Like this is a movie that there is no way they thought this movie was going to be like, a huge hit. But like it's like it's an art piece, It's beautiful and it's brilliant and it's horrifying, but it's not for everybody, It's a thinker, like nothing is what it appears to be. Everything symbolizes something else. It has a very dreamlike quality to it. But yeah, it took me a while too to piece together the whole Genesis and Cain and Abel and all this stuff. But I did by the end, like finally figure out, oh, like when shit starts going really crazy, like after the baby is born, that's when I started going like, oh, But it's an interesting movie to say the least, Like I'm glad I watched it.
All right, I'm glad I watched it. I like that. I like that a lot. I feel stupid, man. I didn't realize that. And Eddie Von B saying, I actually thought Jennifer Lawrence was Mother Nature and the house was Earth. We're on the same page. I mean, it is the same thing. I mean,
she is Mary and Mother Nature. She's both.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, one collection down saying Mary, right? But the idea, like the house, like is her as well. Like she is the house in a way. Like it's kind of connected. I don't know. What about you, Link? This was your second time watching. What did you think about
it? You guys have said it best. Like, there's just so much symbolism. There's a lot going on. I still don't really know what I watch. I gotta agree. Fantastic performances, looks fantastic. But I don't really. This is like a Matrix, someone really has to watch this to even kind of grasp of what's going on. It's crazy. I didn't know Aronofsky was an atheist. He actually I believe he directed a movie called Noah with Russell Crowe, like this crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
I
was
the directed or produced it or something. He was involved in it in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like this crazy action blockbuster take on Noah's Ark. It's interesting. Kind of turns into a horror film midway. I suggest checking it out. But yeah, this one is it's perfect for March Madness. There's just so much crazy shit going on. Like towards the end, when there's that, it reminded me of what's that movie with Clive Owen where humanity is dying out because
Children of Men.
Children of Men. That last battle scene reminds me of that last battle scene in Children of Men on like steroids. It just so much is going on. It starts as like a house party, turns into like a rave, then like a fight between like the police, and then it turns out into like all out war in like 15 minutes. And I don't really know what's going on. She had her baby in that span of time. This is a movie that sticks with you though, and it makes you think, even if you don't really know what the fuck is going on. Really, I feel like that's intentional with all the symbolism. He kind of wants you to extrapolate or interpret your own meaning, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting, worth a watch. I really don't know what I watched, but it's captivating and interesting at the same time.
Hell yeah, well said. And I'm very interested to hear what Joe Corallo has to say. So what do you think about the movie overall, my friend?
Overall, I dislike it more than I like it. There's a lot of a lot of the performances are great. The anxiety is real. There are multiple scenes throughout that really suck you in. What muddies it and lowers it for me is it's so painfully predictable. Like the second, like here's the thing. For me, The guy shows up, then he's sick. His ribs are clearly bruised, showing his rib was removed to create Eve. They don't know he has a wife, and they're like, I didn't even know you had a wife. Did you know he had a wife? And then Eve shows up. And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, I know every single beat that's going to happen in this movie. And I more or less guessed the next 85 to 90% of the movie without really trying, because it's all just the Bible. The war breaking out is just the different divisions of, Christianity, and different people who are taking different interpretations, and different people reacting different ways to like what God was saying, like breaking things and taking things. And then people saying, oh, the prophet said, or, the poet said it was okay. That is the Crusades. That is, the pro-life movement. Like, that's all those people being like, well, the poet, like, it's very heavy-handed. And for me, I was like, stop beating me the fuck up. I get it. Like when they're literally painting over the damage they did to the house, it was so like, you are literally showing people trying to do good by literally painting over. Like, that's like a joke. I mean, it's almost like, I'm like, is this a bit? Like, this is like a serious movie that I'm immediately sucked out, and it's like, you're doing a bit? Like, and showing me like, this is really serious stuff. They're painting over the problems, but that's not what Mother Nature wants, and that's why she's flipping. Like, like that kind of stuff, where it was just like, it really, took the wind out of the movie's sails for me. And, as soon as like she's struggling to keep the baby, I'm like, oh, he's going to bring it to them and they're going to kill it and eat it because it's Christ. And that, like, so it even took all of the wind out of the sails of what's supposed to be like the most horrific scene in the movie. So, and the movie did that. I did not look up a single thing about this movie. I didn't look up a trailer. I didn't even look up the cast. I was like, I know it's Jennifer Lawrence because she's on the image on there, but I don't want to know anything about this movie. She knows she's pregnant because she's the Virgin Mary. Like, how do you know you're like so much of it was just beating me over the head with what the movie was about. But also Ingmar Bergman did it better with was it Hour of the Wolf? Persona like, a bit, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a Darren Aronofsky interview. It's really quick, but like he mentions that. He's like, oh yeah, that was a big influence. And I never even saw that film, but when we were starting pre-production, my crew were like, oh, you should watch this movie, because that's basically what you're doing here. But I've never seen that one.
Yeah.
So
Hour of the Wolf is fucking incredible. It is a pure genius movie. And this feels like a dumber version of that by like a lot. Because that's like a real, like more like pre-Lynchian kind of movie. Like, it's this couple who are just like on this island, and they've just been like isolated together for a while. And it's like they're both going insane. And, she's like getting into like his diaries, and she's finding out these like things he did. But like, how much of that is she manufacturing? Because she's also losing her mind on this island. And then like this stranger appears, and, they end up getting invited to this like fancy party with all these people, and they like kind of know their business, and they start asking like really inappropriate questions. And it's all shot like, it's shot like, if you watch Mother and then you watch this, it's like, oh, he's full of shit. Like, this is shot very it's a lot of focuses on the face, and a lot of like the agony of the the female lead. I think Liv Ullmann. It's a lot of like close-ups on her and her reactions and her walking around and her screaming, and you're just like, you're full of shit, dude. There's no way after you watch that and then you watch this, you're like, you're fucking full of shit. No way. No way did you never see that movie.
Well, I guess I feel dumb because I didn't pick up any of that while I was watching the movie. But then again, I'm not an award-winning comic book writer and editor, so
Oh,
there
stop.
you go.
I mean, but this is the thing too. It's like there are plenty of movies. I mean, it all depends, right? It's a crapshoot. Like another time I might see a movie and something happens or whatever where I'm too distracted by maybe the plot or the acting that I'm just focused on that and I'm not thinking of this other stuff. And you'll be like, you didn't guess the ending of Shutter Island? What are you, stupid? So like, it could be, you never know. So
I know I get what you're saying, but I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, fuck, Javier Bardem is like some kind of evil wizard or something. What's he doing?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure that out. That's where my mind was going. I was trying to figure out, oh, he's an evil wizard. What's up with this doctor dude? Like I didn't pick up any of that shit. And I did the same thing. I didn't watch a trailer. I knew Jennifer Lawrence and Javier were in it, and that was it. I didn't even know Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris were in it. When they showed up, I was like, what? Is Ed Harris going to do his creep show dance? Because that would be awesome. Yeah. Speaking of that cast, though, it's got a brilliant cast. Brooks, what's the performance you want to highlight that stood out for you?
I like Adam. I guess it was Ed Harris is the name of the actor. Yeah. I've seen him in a few things. He's like, I've always liked his performances. I think he's really good. But he's good. He's really good in this movie. Like, I love how awkward it is at first. Like, when we first met, and like, the poet invites him, and then he like looks at her, and he gets this kind of weird, freaked out by her. But that's like the last of the movie. Like, he's only intimidated by her for like a second in the beginning. And then once he's in the house, he basically disregards her for the most part. So yeah, like like I didn't realize he was Adam at first, but like, once I figured it out, I was like, oh yeah, so this guy's Adam, and they're intruding, like breaking his like crystal ball thing is like them eating the fruit from the tree and all that stuff. So yeah, I thought it was like an interesting idea, like, and the idea that he's dying, he knows he already knows about his mortality, and he just wants to know, he's just trying to kind of understand, what it was all for before it's over. And like, it's a great performance. Like, he gets to do a lot too. He comes to him and he's like, happy he's finally found something, and then his son dies and he just like kind of slides back into sadness. So yeah, like I wouldn't say it's a fun character arc to watch, but it is very interesting.
Hell yeah. What about you, Link? What's a performance to highlight for you?
I'm a little biased, but I'm gonna go with my lady, Michelle Pfeiffer, especially with the whole. I think she played Eve perfectly. She was very enticing and kept. She's the one who wanted to touch the egg. Ed Harris, his Adam character was kind of like, yeah, he respected not touching the egg when Javier Bardem. But Michelle Pfeiffer's character is like, oh, but it looks so nice. And it's like she ends up creeping back up there herself. That's when they break it. I love Michelle Pfeiffer. She's pretty much fantastic in anything she does. So I'm going to go with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Man, that was the one I was saved. I was hoping that would be saved for me, man, because she's great, dude. She's catty. She's a seductress. There's an element of me that was like, is she Eve or Lilith?
Yeah.
Or both? Right?
Yeah, kind of like it's supposed to be kind of a combination of the two.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And I like talk about like pushing too far. You're like, yo, you asking about my sex life? You rummaging through my panties, and anybody that takes my wet ass laundry out of the washer and drops it on my floor, get the fuck out of my house right now, dude. It would have been if Jelani was here, he'd be like, at that moment, it's all over. I wouldn't even let this movie happen. That's probably why he's not here. Anyway. What about you, Joe? What's the performance you want to highlight?
I'll go Kristen Wiig. And I will say that in large part because her showing up late in the movie did not suck me out of it at all. She fit right in. There were no little bits. Like, I'm a big fan of hers. I really enjoy, her style of comedy.
You really enjoy her performance in Wonder Woman 1984, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, for sure. But really, the key for me is Liza Minnelli tries to turn on a lamp. If you've never seen that SNL bit, it's really great. But the fact that she showed up and they close up on her face, like immediately it's Kristen Wiig, and it doesn't distract from the movie at all. And that is hard to do with someone like her. So, kudos to that.
All right. As soon as she showed up, the first thing I thought was Cheetah. It was like that Leonardo DiCaprio bit. I was like, that's Cheetah. Alistair, I renounce my wish. I hate that fucking movie so much. But anyway, yeah, she's fine in it too. And so here's an interesting thing. So there's her, and then there's the dude who's like feeding people the baby. Do you think she's like representing like the Protestant, like Bible thumping American, like Baptist screaming and preaching, go to hell, and that dude's representing the Catholicism element or something? Like, yeah, I don't know, like something like that. I don't know, because she's killing people and shit there.
And then you get like the police getting involved and stuff, and that's about like, the tie between the church and state, all that stuff. It's
yeah, all that stuff. All right. All right. Well, since y'all left me the to me, the highlight performance is Jennifer Lawrence.
Sure.
She is amazing in the movie. And one of the things that I think Ed Weird was talking about in the chat, and Joe mentioned it too, like the anxiety is very real in this movie. It's palpable, right? As this movie's happening, one of the first things I did hear about it was, I think, from Ed Weird. I think he commented on a pic I posted on IG or Facebook, and he was like, this movie's like an acid trip. And it does have elements of that, where you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, what the fuck is going on? Where am I at? This is all weird. It's all too much. I just want these people out of my house. We've all been there, haven't we? Where you're like, would these people not just leave my fucking house, please? Like, she does an amazing job of playing a role of mostly reacting to chaos and madness around her, right? Also, a special shout out to Javier Bardem, because I thought he was great, because there's an element of his performance where you're like, this dude sucks. He's an asshole. But there's another element where you're like, no, maybe he's right. He's trying to do the good thing. Like, they do have nowhere to go. But that's like the enticing nature of that kind of a fucking dude. Right. And I don't know, like I kind of fell for it a little bit, but at the same time, I knew that there was something off about him. Like I said, at the majority of my first time watching this movie, though, I thought he was like some kind of evil fucking sorcerer, and there was some fucking ritual space in the basement or some shit like that, right? And he just wanted to craft the perfect woman. That's what I kind of thought what was going on.
Okay.
You said something like?
Is it like the first Testament where he's like, God's kind of like a prick?
Yeah, in the Old Testament.
Yeah. That's where that happens.
Yeah. Hey, God is portrayed in the Jewish Bible as very human. He gets jealous, he gets angry, and at the same time, he's like merciful and benevolent. And you get all that you get that whole range from his performance. So I thought that was actually pretty good. And one thing I noticed in this movie was this dude's got some giant ass hands, bro.
Yeah,
like giant ass fucking hands, dude. He's got like goddamn hands. Anyway, let's talk about the style and the structure of the movie. Stylistically, I think the movie is great. I love the way the special effects are incorporated into it. Even though some of the stuff is special effects, it never took me out of the movie. It never looked like a video game or anything like that. I love the pace of the movie. I was riveted the entire time. I was enthralled. I was just like sucked into this movie, wanting to know what was going to happen next, because I didn't put together the Bible, metaphor and analogy, but like I was transfixed. I found the movie to be quite mesmerizing. It does a great job of pulling you into Mother's state of mind as things are going on, where you're just as confused as her. You're getting just as frustrated as her. You're like Fable said, you're screaming at the TV, being like, get the fuck out of her house. Get off the sink. I have a counter. Brooks knows this. I have a counter in my kitchen. It's braced a little bit, but do not lean on that fucking counter. It's already pulling itself off the wall. And every time I have people over, I'm like, dude, please don't lean on that fucking counter. And then they keep fucking doing it. Oh, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. But I love the style. I love the structure of it. It's a 2-hour movie, but to me, it went at a very, very brisk pace. I enjoyed it immensely. What about you, Brooks? What do you think about the style and structure?
Well, I like the style of this movie because it does feel like like I said, it feels kind of like an art piece. Like this feels like a movie that somebody makes just for the sake of making something interesting. Like it doesn't feel like a movie that was made necessarily to be too appealing, like mainstream wise. But it is like it seems to start out relatively like very normal, but things like things kind of dip into like the surreal for a while, but then they'll like come back into the more realistic, and then it'll dip a little bit more, and it'll come back to more realistic, and then it just goes like full, like when and all of a sudden there's like 100 fucking people in the house, and all this, it's like the house becomes like infested with humanity, like everything just goes like completely crazy. But yeah, it's like it's a fun movie to watch in that it does make you think. It makes you kind of make these connections, and as you're watching, you're kind of piecing these there, and sometimes it dawns on what's going on. It feels like a movie like you could do an interpretation like yours too, like who's to say it's not about a wizard who's trying to like create the perfect woman. So he's like, but he's got himself trapped in this cycle where it always fails in the end, like because he can't show her the love that she wants, because he has love for like humanity as well. So yeah, it's like it's a movie that can be more than one thing, which is part of what I think makes it so appealing.
What breaks the wizard thing for me is it doesn't end in a big musical sequence with a bunch of like dancing brooms and shit like that, mop buckets, and it just goes all crazy, like Fantasia. He's not wearing the hat. But you're right, though. It does hit on all of these different layers, and you can interpret whatever you want out of it, right? Because there's there's not just the Bible stuff, man. I don't think it's.
I think it's difficult to, like, genuinely, when so much of it is the very clear, heavy-handed stuff. If they pulled back a bit, because a lot of movies where you can do that, there aren't the things that you really beat over the head with. I think if they didn't do the very direct Christ metaphor, the very direct being thrown out of the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, like that's a lot of movie real estate. Like we're really
it's all
talking
there.
but we're talking about over half the movie being dedicated to that stuff. So like it does make it difficult. Like I couldn't possibly imagine the movie being about other things because so much of it spends its time on that. If you watch something like, Hour of the Wolf, that's a movie that has a lot going on that really does leave a lot open to interpretation because it's designed for that. I don't think this movie was really designed for that, because you wouldn't name the characters like, man and woman and, poet and mother, like Mother Earth and the Virgin Mary are both mothers. So like this movie, and I'm not saying people can't do what they want with a movie. Once a movie is out there, it's in other people's hands. They do what they wish. But like, I don't like the movie doesn't feel like it wants me to do that. The movie feels very much set like this is what I'm trying to tell you.
I get what you're saying, but I think he's trying to tell us more than one thing.
Like,
right?
And Bible archetypes are not like restricted to the Bible anymore. Like those archetypes are in like all kinds of different stories and mythologies and stuff.
Well, they were in those stories and mythologies before the Bible was even
written,
like so.
Yeah.
Or
sure, but
so
that's really going in different directions when you know exactly what I'm saying. Like,
but what I'm saying is the layers. Like you could look at the movie about religion. You could say that it's about Christianity and what's happened there, or you can look at it and go, this is about what we have done to the earth, right? And how we treat and disrespect the earth. You can also look and say, this is what man does to woman, right?
Mhm.
Or
So that, like,
toxic relationships. Yeah, like the whole end scene where he's like, where she's dying and he's saying, you know, he's like, you know, I need to start all over. Like, do you still have love for me? You could view that as like a toxic relationship where someone keeps going back to a toxic person, a toxic relationship, only to keep getting destroyed. And, you know, and then eventually he puts that on someone else. You know,
But
I
does
get
that
what you mean.
work?
Like it's very on the nose with the religious
Yeah.
stuff, but you can read. There are different things
No,
and
but
layers you
like
can read
the
it to.
the what you specifically mentioned, though, you know, I'm not trying to call you out specifically or say like this is wrong. I'm just saying from my own interpretation here,
Right.
it doesn't work because she literally cannot escape. So you can't really do this sort of like that. The metaphor doesn't work because
Yeah, but
she's
at the
artificially
very end, and
created and she can't leave. So
it's a different woman
like,
though. So who's to say that that's not thematic of saying like a toxic relationship when they're done with somebody, they're destroyed and they move on to somebody else. Like that
and
wasn't
how
Jennifer
many
Lawrence at the very end.
how many
Yeah.
people have been in a relationship where they do feel like they can't leave? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm just saying, Joe. I know.
I also know how to interpret things, and that's just like it's a difficult it's a difficult message to get across when it's physically impossible for that character to. The character does need a moment where they could escape and choose not to, and that doesn't happen here. That's not a fault of the movie. That is not a negative, like that's not a strike against the movie. The movie is already doing a lot of things. I don't think anyone could argue that this movie doesn't have a message or isn't trying to say something positive or isn't trying to say like shine a light on situations, but like that specific bit I think in that example gets muddied for me because of that.
Okay.
How
Okay.
I interpret it is that you're just focused on the religious aspect of the movie. That's how I interpret the message.
The movie wants you to do that. Like it's not trying
It's
to.
very heavy-handed. Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
What, you don't think the movie's
Yeah.
about an evil wizard trying to make the perfect one?
you know, there's something else you
Like
can
50%.
maybe go into it, like the cyclical nature of it. There is something interesting there that goes beyond you know, the Bible and things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, and it helps that particular part because it bookends the movie. So you're kind of have those in like more isolated scenes that aren't interacting with sort of the biblical journey. And you could also, you know, to your point, you know, Link, Robbie, Brooks, who's to say the next cycle isn't another version of a different religion? Who's to say there's no religion at all? Who's to say that, you know, the poet doesn't take another route that doesn't involve our concept of religion? Who's to say the poet's a poet next time? Like, so I think that's the bookend there. That's some of the strongest, I think, weight that the movie has.
That's why we need a mother too. And this time, Javier would be playing a YouTuber who does a movie night every week in a comic book review. What about you, Link? What do you think about the style and structure of the film?
I mean, I stylistically I enjoyed it. That last Pedro mentioned it. The third act, I immensely enjoyed. Just because the transitions were so quick and seamless. Like you're like, what the fuck's going on? But it never like took you out of it. Like it's like, okay, let's just go with it. It's an acid trip, bad acid trip. Structure wise, I think it was fine. You know, it's 2 hours. It didn't seem like 2 hours. Yeah, it's like engrossed. If you don't spot the symbolism early on, it's very engrossed, steeped in mystery. You know, you're always like you said it earlier, like you want to know what's going on, like until you stick around to the end, like what the fuck's really going on, you know? So it's got that going for it. So I enjoyed both of those aspects. I think they were both fine.
Yeah. And 2 hours to get all this done. If Marvel made this movie, it would be 3 hours long, man. It would be like the Eternals, and it would be a complete piece of shit, and we would already be done talking about it. What about you, Joe? What do you think about the style and structure, the technical aspects of it?
I cut in a lot before, so I'll keep it very brief. Just the pacing and all that, just in terms of how it was structured, I think was good. I don't think that it's not one of those movies that I was thinking like, oh, you could have cut this or cut that or like trim this down. I think the runtime's the runtime for a reason. I think things need to breathe at certain points, but it also doesn't give you a lot of room to breathe. It gives you literally like the bare minimum amount to breathe in between scenes and as it ramps up. And the style overall solid, pretty good. I do wish the colors were more vibrant in a lot of it. I think it felt a little muted. I think like his office, some other places could have been really vibrant.
Yeah.
And like mostly that. And yeah, I mean, I think the other stuff might do more with the sound design. So I'll end it there.
All right. Are there any colorful Aronofsky films? Like, I'm trying to think. I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe like, is he, I'm not trying to make excuses for that, because you're kind of right. It's kind of bland as far as the color palette, but is that part of the reason why the crystal and the blood pops, like shit like that? But I'm looking at this cover. I'm looking at I'm looking for like lushness, and stuff like that. So I don't know. You're kind of right about that with the way it's kind of shot, but I feel like that's most of his movies. I haven't seen.
You're right. It is.
Yeah.
This movie has a thing too where like it'll go into like an almost like pencil sketch kind of mode for a little bit. Like, it's like the scene like kind of becomes like an inked drawing almost at certain points, which I never could like. I kind of scratch my head like, what is that all about?
Are you talking about when the house would go back to its like burnt up kind of thing? Yeah. I think that's like her losing the hold. She is Mother Earth, however you want to put that, and the house represents Earth. It's all one and the same. Her heart is combined with the heart of the house or something like that. So when she's losing that focus, that comes in. We had a question in the chat. This is one thing I don't get: the yellow powder.
Yeah, that's
drink.
It's just
I don't quite get it. Yeah, I don't understand that. But is it connected to the yellow that she chooses to spackle the wall with? There's another book called The Yellow Something that this is kind of like apparently inspired by. So I don't really know.
What I basically pictured that's just her, trying to cleanse herself, and it becomes more difficult because she'd be like coughing whenever she was like she wasn't feeling well when she was drinking it. So like her health is declining and all these things, and she's trying to restore herself with that.
Yeah,
it seemed like a coping mechanism, really. Like whenever she get too stressed out, was what she would always do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like watching something like Deadwood, right? And remember the chick had what's the shit called, laudanum or something like that, and like just like kind of drugging yourself to get through. And then on the surface level of just the idea of a failing marriage, that kind of makes a lot of sense, right? But I don't know if it has any symbolic meaning as far as like the yellow powder and shit like that. I don't know. I got to dive deeper into it. Yo, what's that?
Final Fantasy. It was material.
Brooks, he just made a Final Fantasy.
It's ground up command materia sprinkled into a glass of water.
All right. Brooks, what did you think about the music in the film?
I think that's a trick question, isn't it?
What do you think about the lack of music and the sound design? Let's talk about
I think it works. Like, I'm glad that I think like, this movie didn't need, a soundtrack. And like the sound design, it makes the sound design like, pop more, I think, than not having, background music. And like, it has some disturbing sounds in this movie. And, I think that is good that, you don't have music softening that, This is a movie that I don't think needs to be softened. Like, this is a movie that it needs that kind of harshness in order to work. And I think a soundtrack would have kind of detracted from it, I think.
Yeah, Two Gun made a comment saying, I can't wait till y'all get to the music and score part of the conversation. And so then I'm like, all right, this must have like a killer fucking soundtrack, right? And then I watch the movie and I'm like, this motherfucker, I get it. But here's what's crazy. There's been a movie recently that had no music in it. It was In a Violent Nature.
Mhm.
That movie was boring as fuck, right? Not only because it didn't have music, because we've talked about another film that didn't have music in the original cut, which was Dracula, Todd Browning's Dracula from 1931, right?
31, yeah.
So but when the absence of music in that film, Dracula, works because it has this heaviness to it.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, Brooks. If there was a score to this, it would soften the movie. It would be leaning us too much into the emotional state. The movie does a great job of doing that already. But just the fact that In a Violent Nature had no music and it was boring as fuck. This one is not boring.
That yoga kill was pretty cool, though.
The yoga kill's fine. That's the best. I mean, that's the highlight of the movie. What's the end of that movie? The ending of that movie stinks, bruh. I got to listen to this fucking story for 20 fucking minutes to find out none of it meant shit. Oh, God damn it. Now I'm pissed off. Anyway, the sound design in this movie was so it was the score. It was moving audibly the story along, the feeling and everything like that. Ed Weird said the thing about the acid trip, right? Oh, that's something. How creepy is some of you mentioned how creepy some of the sounds are, Brooks. How about just the wind blowing through the fucking vegetation outside? And I don't know if anybody here has ever done any kind of mind experiments, but that shit.
No.
I felt that. When you're what the fuck is that sound? Oh, it's just the fucking wind going through the trees, Robbie. What the fuck is wrong with you? But everything creaks when they're walking in the house. I mean, it's nonstop. The sound design rarely stops. And the lack of the music, I think, actually helps elevate the film beyond. Yeah, it's like the fucking waves, bruh. Nobody's going to leave me alone about the fucking waves. And what was that, Thief?
That was the Limey.
Oh, the Limey. Yeah, the waves, the sound design. Really good. Really good. Anyway. What about you, Link? What do you think about the sound design and the lack of music?
It was amazing. I guess it was more with visuals, but in the war scene, when the soldier gets the bottom half of his jaw blown off, I don't know what that would I don't know what that would actually sound like, but it sounded authentic. When they first break the crystal heart or whatever, and he's grinding his fist in the ground glass, I don't know what they used, but that shit got to me. I was like, oh my God, that sounds like he's just squeezing it.
Dude, what about the sound of the baby's neck snapping, man? What about that one, man?
Bro,
too fucking much, man.
You already knew it did its job quite well.
Hell yeah. Joe, what do you think?
No, I really I think it works. I because here's the thing, right? If it did have more of a soundtrack or more moments, they would have been all the stuff we're already sick of, right? Those sort of jump scary kind of what would you do? And because of what the movie's doing, I wonder if part of the idea was because this isn't real, this is its own sort of pocket universe kind of thing that's disconnected from reality. I do wonder if he was well, we shouldn't do a score because it's not part of reality, and maybe that's part of it, because this movie doesn't work if it's the end of the world as we know it's playing at the end,
It does have an end song that's pretty cool, and it touches on some of the themes, right? And it's got the club song, right? So it does have some music, but it's not very much.
Yeah. So I think it works here. I think maybe there's a version of this where it could have had a score that really assisted in it, but it doesn't need that. So I think, and it probably makes the movie stand out more having no real score.
Yeah.
I think maybe if it did have a score, it could have hurt this movie more than helped it. It could have, a mass score on something like this, I think makes it a lot easier to sour on a movie like this.
I know. I agree, but I would like to see Tangerine Dream give it a try. I think that would be pretty fun.
It'd be funny if you asked the director like why he chose that, he's just like, oh, I just didn't want to pay for music.
Yeah. We had to pay for
Like,
Jennifer Lawrence.
I just didn't put music in the movie.
Jennifer Lawrence was peak career at this moment.
Yes.
We had to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
I wish there was a commentary on this. There's not. There's like a little bit of a making of or something, but you don't get a lot of special features with modern movie physical media releases. Let's just be thankful we can get whatever physical release we can get. But I do think
interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say tidbit. I don't know if it's speaking on like themes of the movie, but I believe Aronofsky and Jennifer Lawrence were dating at the time they made this movie.
I think he's got a pattern of dating the lead actresses in his films.
No
and then
shit.
breaking up, and then they break up afterwards. I think that's like a pattern because I may be wrong, but I think he dated Natalie Portman while they were doing Black Swan as well, but I'm not 100%.
I can see that. Yeah.
But
what a good guy.
Yeah. One more thing about the lack of music and the sound design. The movie is from the perspective of Mother. The movie is all set in the house and how connected they are. What is the soundtrack of Earth? What is the music of Earth? That is the music of Earth. It's like hearing the wind, hearing the creaking, hearing the steps. And I don't know, it adds up to that feeling of anxiety, that anxious feeling in this movie. I think it helps really accelerate that, especially as the movie ramps up into Act 3. And that's what it does. It starts slow. It's very methodical with this, and it keeps getting crazier. And then all of it at the end of the movie, it's like da, 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 da. Like, so what do you put in? Like I don't know. We've already touched a lot on this, so let's have a great conversation here. This is what I've been looking forward to. Brooks, what is this movie Mother speaking to you? What's the theme that you feel most connected to in the movie?
Well, this movie, it seems to have like a very kind of bleak outlook on humanity. Like humanity in this movie is like, it's all about tension. Like the more
They're
people,
the worst.
like the more people in a scene in this movie, the worse the movie gets. Like the more tense it gets. Cause like, this is a movie about, it kind of feels like, it could be a movie about just, a woman who's going through the anxiety of like having a husband who just like needs attention, who's an artist who just needs the adoration, who needs the people in his life. And, he just brings them in and, despite, it causing her anxiety, but like humanity is just, I believe that in its infancy, humanity probably was very much like this, very, very selfish, not very thoughtful about, their surroundings. And, it's kind of stuck, but I think humanity has evolved a little bit since then. I think we're a little more,
have you paid attention in 2025, bro?
we got a little backsliding here and there, but, I think that like, the kind of bleak outlook on humanity is a little bit one-sided, because as much as like humanity can be deplorable and disgusting and annoying, and people can just like try to like wedge themselves into your life even though you don't want them to, and like you can get caught up in people's drama and stuff, like that is life, and I think like the problem with Jennifer Lawrence as the mother is that she can't learn to accept it. She's been so cut off from humanity for so long that as it starts creeping back into her life, like she just can't handle it. It's too much, But that's how humanity is. Like you got to take the good with the bad. But some people just can't do that. Some people need that kind of space, I guess. But like they also need to like learn. Like you can't run away from humanity. It's just like it is. Unless you want to like run out in the middle of the woods or something. Like you got to learn to deal with people at some point. like even the inconvenient parts of it, you know.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I'm a little bit of a humanist myself, you know. I believe there is inherent good in most people, right? All the bad shit, most of that I think is a collective bad, right? And there's some bad, heinous, evil, shitty fucking people in the world. But I mean, but collectively, it can be generalized as a detriment to our society, or that society is a detriment to this planet. And what I love is the movie does put in the bit from the poet's perspective, from him's perspective, from I, from God, or whatever however you want to call Javier's character in this movie, right? But like the movie is from the perspective of Mother. And what's his name? Is it Jeremy Johns? This is like a movie reviewer on YouTube. I love the dude. He's got a really snappy delivery. I think he's great. In one of his spoiler reviews for this movie, he referenced the fucking pilot episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And he goes, if Q at Encounter in Farpoint called Jennifer Lawrence to the stand, case is over. Humanity is guilty. And I love that. But that's a really good point, Brooks. But I do believe in the inherent good of humanity. But I think if you really kind of just look at everything collectively, man, we're some pretty shitty ass people, especially to this planet. What about you, Link? What are you thinking about this movie? What's it speaking to you?
To me, the most, I mean, you know, to what Brooks said, that's valid. Definitely heavy-handed on the whole religion aspect, but you know, I think there's like, it's definitely speaking on like the parasitic nature that relationships can take on sometimes. You know, the whole, like you said, the giving tree. It's like you can give something to someone so much till you have nothing left to give, and you know it's still not enough. You know, you're just a husk, and you know it's like, I don't know. I think there's something there with that. But this is a layered movie. I think Aronofsky is definitely one of those directors who wants to leave things open to interpretation. Even though he might be heavy-handed on certain aspects, I definitely believe he's like one of those directors to not force you. You check out the Noah movie. But no, yeah, I think it's there's so many themes going on, and any one of them is validated.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you were saying there about the giving tree and giving so much, and like that is a part of it, right? And I think that works on all those levels. Whether it's that, I mean, there's the religious thing, right? But like as far as if it's Earth or it's a woman, right? And a woman in a dying marriage, a dying relationship, you haven't even had sex with me and for so long, and all that kind of shit, right? And or whether it's Earth responding to what we as humanity and civilization have done. All we do is take. And I love what Eddie was saying, the human nature to destroy what's not yours because all you care about is what benefits you. And that is prevalent in this movie. And the more that you care towards people and people see that, they will take from you. They will use you up, right? A very profound thing that's said in this movie is when she tells God or the man or the poet or whatever, you never loved me. You just loved how much I loved you. Damn. That hit me personally because I have been in some of those relationships where I just loved how much they loved me, or they loved how much I loved them, you know? So I don't know. I think those are some, I think it's like a triple decker Roni fucking Pizza Hut pizza from the 1990s, man. I wish they would bring that shit back. That would be dope. Speaking of triple deckeronis, what was that, Link?
VHS. With the X-Men VHS.
What about you, Joe? What theme is standing out to you? What do you think the movie's speaking to you personally?
Well, yeah. Before I dive into that real quick, for the love of God, watch Ingrid Bergman's Persona. And
you get a Crew's Choice every year, and you pick some European animated film nobody's ever heard of. I'm just saying.
But you know, but no, for the love of God, watch Persona and Hour of the Wolf. Like that is a great double feature. That's a heavy. Those are two heavy, thoughtful, profound movies. I appreciate what everyone's saying. I think a lot of leniency is going in here. I think this movie is a little more surface level than it's being given credit for. That said, I will mention that one aspect of this movie that is very clear to me is, I guess I'll refer to it as, I don't know, brutal optimism, because this is an optimistic movie. It starts with the rebirth, it ends with the rebirth. If this was not an optimistic movie, why would he be starting again? You know, he starts, he does this every time, and you can choose. Like, here's the thing that I think is very much left open in this particular movie. You can choose to take it as, is humanity doomed? And this is just a constant circle that will never end? Or can you view it with optimism and be like, we're going to keep doing this until we do it right? And I think that's interesting.
That is interesting. Thank you for sharing that. All right. For me, I've kind of gone all over the place. I can't find one, like, what it means to me. By the end of the movie, before I really pieced everything together, I was like, this is a movie. It's exactly what Link was saying, right? And I didn't even know what the Giving Tree was at this time. It's like, this is about how humanity takes and just consumes and devours and destroys. This movie is about creation and destruction. It's about that kind of, somebody very important to me was talking about, like, yeah, it's about Christianity, but it's adding in other layers, right? Like some of like the Hindu beliefs of like the cyclical nature of reality, like even the Norse mythology, Ragnarok, shit like that. There's nothing in Christian mythology, nothing in Jewish mythology that talks about like starting over and starting again, right? There's also a Gnostic interpretation of this movie where Mother is Sophia. If anybody knows Gnosticism and shit like that, and the demiurge and all that shit, like that's kind of a part of it too. But so that cycle of creation and destruction is there, and how that cyclical nature repeats in our lives, in our relationships. So I think that's pretty profound about the movie. And maybe I am being very forgiving, very, very forgiving of it, Joe. But I that's why we love these discussions. We can riff on movies. We don't hurt each other's feelings here on PCP Movie Night. Sometimes they do. Funhouse. Funhouse is the one time I had my feelings really, really hurt.
Or every time you forget Jelani hates Blade Runner.
Yeah, that's true.
But every time it comes up, it's always like, I totally forgot and I'm angry all over again.
Yeah, because I went to the bathroom and took my yellow powder and poured it in the water and sipped it down, and I forgot about it. I feel good with the universe again. But like all that's there, like the humanity of it, the way that you can give and give and give until you're gone. And we know people like that. We've been people like that. We've also been on the other side of that, where we just take from people, from society, and all the shit. I want this. I need this. I'm entitled to this. It's about religion and how it gets all fucked up and twisted, especially in interpretation. This dude wrote one of the most beautiful things ever, because Mother herself, we're like, that's so beautiful, but everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants a piece of them, right? And that's something I think John Cena is really feeling right now. How everybody just wants a piece of him. Had to throw in a little bit of wrestling talk.
Not his scalp.
Yeah, you're right about that one.
Joe, he got
but yeah, it's speaking so many things, man. It's hard. Like, I usually can come in like, well, this is the one thing I think it's about. Not with this movie. Like, I think it's about a lot. But to me, what really resonates with me is the idea of how destructive we are. Not just, I mean, we're destructive to our environment, in our relationships, to ourselves.
At large.
We're just a destructive fucking species. That, yeah, Brooks, I do believe that there's an inherent goodness in humanity, but man, sometimes
I get it.
Yeah, that's why I don't doom scroll news on Facebook and Twitter and fucking shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So like, It just
Sure.
gets you down, man. It gets you down.
Mhm.
And it's also about
George
anxiety and like what anxiety feels like, dude. Like what it feels like when all this shit is like coming at you and it's overwhelming. And really, it's not like, no, we need to take care of them. Like, yeah, their son just died. They have nowhere to have the wake, which is the very next, that same night. Like, that's another thing about the structure. What is the time? How many days does this take place over? Oh, it's so crazy, right?
Right.
There's no sense of time really in the movie as well. I'm sorry, Link. I keep stepping on you. What were you saying?
No, I was gonna say to what you say about humanity. George Carlin, I remember watching this one of his specials where he said like, he likes individuals. Like you can find the universe in one person, but people at large are where it starts to become like a problem. Like group mentality, I guess, the whole religion aspect, or I don't know.
I was just listening to this podcast where they were talking about that exact thing about like they were talking about the shadow, but also how like the shadow is not just a personal thing; it could be a collective thing, right? We're talking about the Jungian idea, but like, and they were talking in particular about the like at the end of World War II, right? And when Mussolini got torn apart by a mob, basically, that's not something that any individual would typically do, but that as a collective. Right? Like it just kind of, you swarm, you join, and throw that in with the idea of religion and what dogmatic and organized religion has done throughout the centuries. And yeah, that's why I think the Christian allegory is or metaphor is really strong, is because y'all, I'm not trying to shit on anybody's religion. I believe that what you believe works for you, and everybody has the right to believe what they believe. And spirituality is a very important thing, whatever the avenue is you're going through. I believe everything is real and everything is untrue at the same time, right? But you can't argue that organized Christianity has really fucked up some shit in this world, right? But you could say that about other religions too. Not so much, but even like religion, like, yeah, you can, because even like, look at the country of India. Look at the division of religion there and what happened to that country. And shit like that, right? And like, so you see it just. Go ahead.
I don't know, if religion really. I mean, I know it matters, but there's the whole case system there, and it's like that contradicts with religion at the core of it. So,
yeah, I mean, you see it all over the world. If you really, we're kind of like, I'm like, obviously, as an American, I'm like, I think that like, the only real religions that are destructive are Christianity, right? Maybe Islam and maybe a little bit of Judaism, but like, no, it's all of them. Like when it's the organization of it and you put power into people who interpret it, right? That's when everything really starts going wrong in this fucking movie. Yeah, a lot of wars are started for religion and money. Those are it's religion, organized religion at the highest levels, y'all. I'm not talking shit.
A lot of people now, money is religion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like at the highest levels, religion is about power and money is about power. It's not about money. It's not about religion. It's about power, right? And who has the power in this? But I don't know. But we've lost ourselves in our own yellow sauce. Anyway, continuing on, time to rate this film. You out there in the chat, what do you give Mother out of 5 possible you digs? Brooks, kick us off.
Well, like, I like this movie. But it's extremely heavy. Like, it feels oppressive in a way. But that being said, I do think this is a movie I wouldn't mind rewatching. But I'd have to give it some time. I think like I really need to decompress for watching this fucking movie. I think so. I give this movie a 4. Like, it's good, but I can see it not being everybody's cup of tea. Like, it is it can be a heavy-handed, like Joe says. I guess it depends on your mentality, I can see this movie seems like it can affect, like, it can affect different people in different ways. But I can see how a lot of people just would not get it or just wouldn't like it at all because it's very, like, it's very grim and very, like, strange, But, that's kind of the fun of it, too.
Yeah.
If you got a good brain like mine.
4 you digs from Brooks. What about you, Link? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm right there with Brooks at a 4. I was kind of wavering between like 3.5, 3.75, but based on this conversation and the fact that this for good or for bad, I respect a movie that really gets you thinking. You know, even if it's some of the stuff is a little bit on the nose. You know, I still respect that it has you in your own head trying to interpret different things. You know, so I'll give it a 4. Yeah, it's a great movie, great performances. It's well acted, greatly shot, beautifully shot. But I definitely understand how this might not be for everybody. So give it a solid 4.
All right, 2 4s so far. What about you, Joe?
3. It's there's some good stuff there, but yeah, I don't think this is as deep as it's getting credit for. It is saying something, which is better than not saying anything at all. But like it's not like me disliking Darren Aronofsky. I think I would probably I would 100% give The Wrestler, Black Swan, and Requiem for a Dream a higher score. Like, I think all of those are better movies. I think they're all like, Black Swan's also like a bit on the nose. Requiem for a Dream is on the nose in some ways, but it's also doing something different. And The Wrestler is just like, so good. But yeah, 3. I think there's good stuff here. I think the tension's very real. I think it's engrossing. I think they make a lot of good decisions. I think the acting's strong, but there's just all these other elements to it that weigh it down for me.
All right. Fair enough. Man, I'm kind of tempted to give it a 5, right? I'm tempted to give it a 5, mostly because of just thinking about this movie and unraveling it throughout the day in my sleep. I'm sure I had some weird fucking dreams about worms, and I think Nick Barucci was in my dream too. It's so weird. Anyway, that's weird. He had nothing to do with the worms. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm in the glow of just kind of like unpacking this thing. Mm-hmm. When I initially finished watching it, I was like, maybe like a 4, but then the more I thought about it, I want to lean into a 5, but I think I want to watch it again and see how it goes without the exhilaration of finding a movie that's not like, I don't know, fucking Ant-Man or The Monkey or some fucking bullshit like that, So everybody's giving it a fair score. I'm trying to be more critical. I'll give it a 4.5. I will. I'll give it a 4.5. I do like this movie a lot.
Hour of the Wolf is free on YouTube.
Well, my homie also
under
has
an hour and a half.
Score. Okay.
So
really? Oh, interesting. I will watch it, Joe. Like, I mean, I want to. The only Bergman film I've seen is Seventh Seal. But wait, did he do Joan of Arc as well?
Oh, he might. I think he did.
Okay, I've seen that. He did
one of them, yeah.
Or The Passion of Joan of Arc, or whatever it's called, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll watch that movie, Joe. But for now, I'm going to give it a 4.5, and I think it's got room to grow and it's got room to diminish, right? But my first time watching it, I'm pretty freaking awesome. Like with watching this movie, with owning this movie, and I do want to watch it again. I think the movie is mesmerizing. I find a lot in this movie that is really cool. And like, I have that Christian background too. So I think that doesn't hurt for my interpretation of it. But anyway, I really like it. So hell yeah. A 4 from Brooks and Steph, a 3 from Joe, a 4.5 from me, for a PCP average 3.9999969. Sound right? Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably more like 4.01269. Yeah. 4.01269. Let's go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We pulled it up a little bit, I think. Yeah.
I think
yeah. All right. Thus concludes our movie review of Mother. But March Madness is not over, even though we are at the tail end. We are kicking off the last week here, but we still got a few movies to cover, including tomorrow night on One Collection Down. Fable and the crew are going to be talking about Old Boy. That's the original, not the remake. On Thursday, Dylan, I messed up the thumbnail order. On Thursday, Verno over at Blood Splatter Chatter will be talking about The Invisible Man from 2020. On Sunday night, Dylan is ending his run with March Madness with In the Mouth of Madness. That's a great John Carpenter film. And we're ending it all next week here on PCP Movie Night with The Lighthouse. I'm so excited to rewatch this movie and dive into it. I've only seen it one time and I loved it. So I'm really excited to watch it again. I've become quite the Robert Eggers fan, especially with Nosferatu and The Northman in particular. And The Witch is one of the greatest horror movies of the last 25 years, right? So
I agree.
Yeah, really, really like that. Really looking forward to The Lighthouse next week here on PCP Movie Night, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Brooks, thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts?
Just Delaney, who was too cowardly to show his face tonight, but me and him do Go Figure reviews, and this past week we did Savage Land Professor Xavier, which was pretty cool. It's not one I saw coming, but it was pretty fun. But I guess for my closing thought, I have to say, tell your children not to walk my way. Tell your children not to hear my words, what they mean, what they say. Mother.
So is Professor X in the Savage Land like in cutoffs?
No, he's wearing like the green jumpsuit.
The jumpsuit with the Cerebro helmet. That'd be cool
No,
he should be dressed like Rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the little torn up
his ass cheeks hanging out, right?
So
Hell
good.
yeah. Steph, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure to unpack a movie with you. Any final thoughts? What you got coming up? You going to be on Invisible Man?
Yes, sir. You can check us out over at Blood Splatter Chatter Thursday for Invisible Man. But I'm gonna go with Brooks' final thoughts. I can't top that. But yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Joe, thank you so much for being here. It's always fun to talk movies with you.
I appreciate it.
This was not a Funhouse situation, though I do want everybody to know I did the other day order a Funhouse shirt. And I simply spent that $30 at Gutter Garbs or Cavity Colors or Fright Rags, wherever the fuck it was, to spite my friends. And I'm going to wear it as much as fucking possible. So there you go. Anyway, Joe, thank you for being here. Final thoughts. What you got coming up?
Thank you, Robbie. Well, Green Hornet is it's wrapping up soon. I think was it issue 4 is almost out, and issue 5 final order cutoffs in the next, I think, few weeks. So I'll wrap that up. Excited for people to check that out. I'm really enjoying it. I think Federico Ceresa is, again, I cannot stress his art enough. People have to scoop him up. Then King Arthur Knights of Justice Volume 2. It's out in June. It's through Mad Cave's Maverick imprint. So check it out. If you haven't read Volume 1 yet, what are you waiting for? You can get that now and pre-order Volume 2. Why don't you? And then there are other things I should be able to talk about pretty soon. I am in the process of writing solicit for a book that hopefully will get an announcement, maybe in the next month or so. So keep an eye out.
Heck yeah. Some exciting things coming up in the career of Joe Corallo, y'all. Trust me. So you don't want to miss it. Like I said, PCP Movie Night next week, The Lighthouse. Don't forget Old Boy tomorrow night on One Collection Down. The Invisible Man from 2020, starring Elizabeth Moss. Is that her name? I like that movie. Did you like that one, Joe?
Think so, yeah. Yeah, it's the Wolfman that I didn't like as much.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's not as good.
Both done by Lee Whannell, right? Yeah.
He's an interesting director. He's
and that King Arthur Knights of Justice is based on the cartoon. So
okay.
Not the Wolfman? It's not based on the Wolfman? Oh,
no, the Wolfman. Oh man, the Wolfman was that was a rough one.
Interesting.
Oh man. All right. And then of course
it wasn't the worst, but it was just like it could have been so much better.
Okay. In the Mouth of Madness, by the way, on Dylan's Horror Show Sunday night. Lighthouse here next week. We are dipping out. My final thoughts are this. Station, pop, pop, boom, and treat your mother a little bit better.